Hello and good evening, Africa. Welcome to another edition of Closer Perspective, brought to you by Thando channel and hosted by yours truly, Sapi Bachi. And I am so excited about my guest this evening. I saw her content first on LinkedIn and I fell in love instantly with her energy, with her spirit, with her positiveness that she exudes in all her content. And I'd love to welcome and help me make welcome Doreen to Closer Perspective. Doreen, hello, and thank you so much for making the time to chat to me.
Hello, thank you so much, Sapi, and thank you for hosting me today in your platform.
I am so excited. Just to tell our audience a bit about Doreen, Doreen Moraa Moracha is a young woman living with HIV from Kenya, and she's the founder of I Am a Beautiful Story digital initiative that's meant to create hope and awareness and also encourage people living with HIV that there is a beautiful life even after an HIV positive diagnosis. Doreen is a social influencer championing against the HIV/AIDS stigma using her own lived experience and has gained such a huge following on social media for amplifying the HIV messaging. And I am one of her stalkers. Doreen was awarded the Stigma Warrior Award in 2020 by the International Stigma Conference. She's also a member of the UN Women Generation Equality Youth Task Force and the first cohort of the Beyond Living Life Force by GNP and partners. In 2019, Doreen was highlighted by WHOAFRO as one of the youth champions for the T on HIV campaign. Her highlight, however, has been the recognition by AYP Community Advocacy, awarded by the National AIDS Control Council in Kenya during the Maisha Conference in 2021. And more recently, Doreen has been selected as one of the global HIV collaboration members and also a young leader with the International AIDS Society. This is last year in 2021. Stella, Doreen, welcome. You have been doing so much and championing and being such a voice against HIV stigma and being able to live positively in spite of the condition. So excited to have you. And your journey started when you were young. I recall reading an article, Doreen, that you shared on LinkedIn. And you say that your mother was told that you would not live past the age of 12. And yet here you are, breaking barriers, creating amazing stories, and championing this amazing cause. How was growing up knowing that you had HIV? How did you deal with that as a young person? Did you understand? At which point was this your status disclosed to you?
Thank you so much for hosting me today once again. And to me, I did not start, I did not know that I was living with HIV for the first 13 years of my life. I came to know about my HIV status when I was 13. My parents took me to hospital and I was tested and told that, Doreen, you have HIV and you're going to live with this for the rest of your life. At that particular point, that was 5 years after my parents had found out, because my parents knew about my HIV status when I was 8. So even though I was born with HIV, way back then the HIV response was not how it is right now, where pregnant women get tested, you know your status. My mom just gave birth to me, took me home, and for the first 8 years of my life, I was just always sickly, and they didn't know what was happening. So when I turned 8, I had an infection called herpes zoster. And that is actually what prompted the doctors to actually tell my parents that, can we test her for HIV? And that is now when my parents knew their status, where my mom is positive, my dad is negative. They are a discordant couple. And me and my late brother, the only ones among our siblings who ended up being infected with HIV.
And how many siblings do you have? How big is the family?
I have three siblings, so they would have been four. One passed on, so now the ones that are currently alive are three.
Okay. So when you discovered at the age of 13 that you are HIV positive and your parents discovered for the first time, how did the family unit handle that? And did you understand the enormity of what was going on with your health at that point?
When I was told that I am living with HIV, my mind did not look at it from a death sentence perspective. I looked at it as a point of view where I will get to travel, because we used to travel to a little bit of a distance to get our treatment. I also saw it as an opportunity for treats, like monthly treats, because every month my mom will treat me with some chips, chicken, all that. So to me, from a child's perspective, it didn't really matter. I didn't care much that I'm HIV positive. No, I just cared about the fact that every month I will be eating chips. That was a plus to me. So, so my family, the very first time when they were told, and they were when they were told when I was 8, that time there was zero treatment.
Mm,
So there was nothing, like the only thing you were being told to go home with was hope. So they went home, and the first thing my parents did was baptize me. So I was baptized at the age of 8, and
mhm,
I was now loved. I sometimes I feel like that even affected my relationship with my older siblings, because my parents were really over loving. Like I think they knew these are her last few years. We are going to spend this with her. Then we have to be extreme about it.
mm.
So yeah, so my it was a little bit, the balance was not really, they
You
could
were
not
the
be able,
favored one.
sort of. Sort of, because, but you see, coming from a parent's perspective, the doctor has told them your child
Mm,
is going to die. They have to
absolutely.
make, yeah, making peace with that, ensuring that they actually accept, they were trying to accept that we are not going to have this child for long, so we have to
Mm,
love her now, so that we have all of these things with her before she goes. And then now 5 years later, there's now treatment. But now my brother unfortunately did not get the treatment, but I was fortunate enough to get the treatment. And now we start ARVs with my mom. And now this time it's a little bit, I still don't know, because I was not able to ask questions and ask, do my other siblings have HIV? Does my father have HIV? You see, such kind of questions are questions that I found out as time went by. And
mm,
my father, now when I found out my father does not have HIV and my mom has HIV, and it was a little bit, discordant couples are not exactly um, a typical couple, because
mhm,
most typical couples have the same status. So these
mm,
ones don't have the same status. And then they have been together for like over 30 years now. And
mm.
a lot of them, a lot of people really wonder, like, how are they a discordant couple? It really is a very different dynamic. So
Yeah.
there was that as well. But the saddest part in the whole journey and the discovery and the disclosure was when my mom told her side of the family. I honestly to date don't know whether my dad's side of the family knows. Maybe they have
Mhm.
seen me on TV, I don't know, but they don't talk about it, so I don't know. But with my mom's side of the family, because my mom opened up to them and told them, hey, I'm living with HIV, my daughter has HIV, my son has HIV as well. And she really expected the love, the care, and the support. But they were the same people who actually discriminated us the most. Because I remember living with one of my relatives, and my clothes were disinfected every time they were washed. I had my own set of utensils every time, like they will be
Mm,
disinfected, they will be sun dried. I would
mm.
not be allowed to share a bed with my cousins, just because I don't know whether they thought I was going to infect them. So it really made me not like them much, because I was always like, why are they treating me differently? I am the same. And there's this thing when people tell you you have HIV, and then you experience some sort of let me just say it's over loving or over caring. Now people think you need a different nutrition regimen. My grandmother would literally overfeed me, because after every 5 minutes you'll ask, are you okay? Do you want milk? Do you want fruits? like, she does not understand that I can just eat lunch, breakfast, and supper as a normal person.
As a
No.
normal person.
Yeah, so to me it felt like a little bit too much, because at home I was being treated normally, but every time I was not home, it was not normal at all. So it really
Mm.
used to make me feel very uncomfortable.
I can understand that and I can appreciate, and especially like you're saying, there was like an overcompensation with the parents, and it created a bit of a rift with your siblings, and then
Yeah,
with your other family members and cousins, because we didn't understand the transmission of the virus when it first started. Of
yeah.
course, you had your own set of everything, because, and again, that also created a rift. So I can really understand that. But what I love about what you're saying is, in your mind and how you took it, living with HIV, man, it was the treats. I get to travel, I get these special treats. So your mindset has always been, you know, positive. It has always been, I'm going to live the very best life. It's not something that started when you're much older. You just kind of inherently had that positive spirit. Did your mom and your dad, in perhaps overcompensating, just kind of tell you that you are amazing, you're going to make it, and give you hope?
Honestly, they didn't, and they never really talked to me about my HIV status much. It's just because even the disclosure happened in a hospital setup. So, like,
Yeah.
the doctor just said it, and that was it. So after that, I was just required to take my treatment, and that was it. And I was okay with that. In fact, I didn't mind taking the treatment because I was taking Septrin back then, and Septrin is I had an allergy towards sulfur, and so I never really liked Septrin at all. So when the ARVs came, and the pediatric ARVs that time were really small, really colorful, so I loved them. But now, as the more I grew up, the more I understood HIV. And now I started seeing it as not such of a positive and nice thing, because also my friends, when I will ask my friends, will you be friends with somebody who has HIV? And then they're like, no, they will infect me. Why would I be friends with them? So it made me not tell my friends about it. And now,
Mm,
yeah, so when I went to boarding school, in boarding school it's a shared space, so some of the
yes.
kids will see the big containers, and they're like, what is this treatment for? And now I had to lie that the medication was for a heart condition, because nobody is going to judge me for having a heart condition. And
Yeah.
you know in fact, they will now be like, oh my God, sorry, so how do you feel like when your heart acts up? And I'll have to come up with symptoms, even though I have never had a heart condition. I don't know how people with heart conditions behave, but I had to, because this is high school. And to prevent that bullying, to prevent being like looked down upon, I had to lie. And I lied
Mm,
all the way through high school. And some of them even were so supportive, they would remind me what time to take treatment. So most of them were shocked when I actually came out publicly and said, hi, I have HIV. And they're like, okay, you told us you have a heart condition. But I'm like, we were in high school. If I told you I have HIV, we would probably never have.
so
That was that.
what was the trigger for you to come out? So as a way of coping during high school, you did not disclose your status, but at some
Yeah.
point you decided, I'm going to take a stand and I'm going to just tell people my status. What was the trigger for you? Why did you decide? And at what point did you decide to publicly come out with your status?
So the trigger started after high school. After high school, I stopped taking my ARVs. I defaulted. No, nowadays they're called treatment interrupters. So I interrupted my treatment. And
Mhm.
when I interrupted my treatment, there was some herbalist and he was really featured so much on mainstream media. And people were going there in Tanzania, and they were saying he actually cures all diseases. So I convinced my mom and told her, we can go there, we can take this herbal treatment, we can become HIV free, because that is the goal. And then we went, we drank it was just a 1 cup, a herbal medicine, came back home. It was a very long queue of people who have different ailments. So
Mhm.
we prayed, we took our cup, we came back home, and the man was actually gave us a speech before we took the herbal medication and told us, I don't really have a cure, but you have faith. And for us to travel all that long, we had enough faith. We had a lot of faith. So uh,
Yes.
when we came back, 3 months later, my mom stopped. My mom went to test. She was still positive. So she came back home. She told me, let's go back to our treatment. But I was in denial. At this point, I did not like the fact that I have to take treatment for the rest of my life. You know, when I was told at 13 that I will be taking treatment for the rest of my life, I did not imagine that for the rest of my life will be 17 years later. I just imagined just for a couple of years and then we can get something, a permanent solution. But now here I am stuck with this medication every day. So I didn't like that treatment anymore. And now I stopped taking treatment for 2 years. And now my mom tried to convince me, the social workers tried to talk to me, counselors tried to talk to me. But I was really adamant that maybe that herbal medication will work at some point. But it didn't. And I ended up with 2 opportunistic infections. And that is now I ended up again back in the hospital, starting from square one. My viral load had gone up at this point, and everything was just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
chaotic. So then in 2014, we were doing when I was doing my attachment in one of the institutions, and then we went out to test people for HIV. So we were now telling them there's a free HIV going on, come get tested. And then all of them, everybody was just like, I don't need to get tested, I'm good. So you know, like everybody is just like, I'm fine, I don't need a HIV test, I know my status. Some of them have never even tested their whole lives, but they insist that they are okay. So we had a very huge challenge, and my boss challenged me and told me, Doreen, why not open up to them, tell them you're also living with HIV, tell them you are actually, you have lived with HIV your whole life, and here you are looking healthy, looking strong. Maybe that will actually, you know, there's this thing where when HIV came, the people, the billboards we had, the messaging we had was of people who are thin and dying. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have actually not moved away from that person, right? So most of them are like, do I look like I have HIV yet? Like, you go and tell somebody, come get tested, and they're asking you, do I look like I have HIV? Because they expect to be thin and emaciated and all that. So my boss told me, just tell them your status. And I was not ready to tell them my status. That was where I drew the line. But I didn't tell her no. I just told her, we can work with that. We can actually work with that. So later on, I was reading a story on the daily newspaper, and I was like, what if I just write to this editor and tell her, hey, I am HIV positive. At the back of my mind, I was not really writing to the editor for the purposes of really disclosing. In fact, I was like, you know, it's like writing those anonymous letters that you write to somebody and you are
Yeah.
hoping they're not going to read them, but you are somehow vented anonymously. So
Yeah.
that, because I had, up to that point when I was 23, I had never sat down and relived my experience as a person living with HIV. So that was the very first time. And so I sent the email, and I came back home and I was like, I even forgot about it. Then I got a response from her. And she was like, Doreen, I love your story. I want us to do an interview. And I was shocked because I had not told my parents. I had not told anybody. I was like, oh my God, now people are going to know I have HIV. So she told me, no. We are going to do it on a digital platform. Nobody's going to, like, it's not going to be that huge. That time, digital media was not huge the way it is right now.
No,
So
right.
yeah, so I was like, okay, the fewer the people, the better. So I told my mom, I told my dad. My dad was really against it the very first time I came out, and but my mom was okay, fine, no problem. You go ahead, do the interview. So I did the interview, and then I left my email at the end of the interview. Now people started sending me emails. People
Wow.
opened up to me. People told me, Doreen, I have lived with HIV for this long, and the only person who knows about my status is actually me and my doctor. And
Mm.
now that saddened me, as in, this is a lifelong health condition. you have zero support system. It is just you and your drugs and all that. And it was so overwhelming. And
Mm,
then that is now when I realized that we had taken a step back when it comes to leveraging on lived experiences. And I
mm,
decided, let me just start and talk to these people and just tell them, hey, I am we in Kenya, we have approximately 1.5 million people living with HIV. At least you know one. So it's me and you. So two of us know each other.
wow.
So you know, and
So
that is how I
interesting.
started.
So the I am a beautiful story
Yeah.
was not something intentional. It's something that just kind of happened. What were some of the fears that you had
Mhm.
about disclosing your status?
Some of the fears I had was people stigmatizing me, and because sadly we still have stigma in society. We still have people who look at people living with HIV from a point where they feel like we should not even talk about our HIV status publicly. A lot of people tell me, why not just take your treatment silently and move on? Why do you keep on? In fact, somebody the other day said, um, eh, he was sort of stigmatizing someone else and then said, why, if you are brave enough, why don't you advertise yourself the way Doreen does? So we still have people who just don't get that it's not just about sharing my journey, it's about helping other people who are
Mm,
living with this journey. So I was really afraid of the stigma because, and I have, the thing is, I have faced it. So opening up publicly has also helped me have that tough skin of handling people like, I am HIV positive, I am unapologetic about it, you can do whatever you want to do. So the thing is, not everybody will see me from that perspective where
yeah.
I am living beyond my status. Some of them decide, no, this one, we can just say something mean, something,
Mm,
and
that's
I think I have learned to live with it now. My greatest fear was the stigma, actually, because I was like, wow, people are going to know about me. And when they do, I don't know how I'm going to handle it. But so
right.
far,
And
so good.
response. Excellent. Now you've said, one of the things that went on in your mind was this is a lifelong condition.
Yeah.
I am going to be having to take this medication. And initially, you didn't think you'd be taking it for 17 years. You thought, look, I'm going to take it for a couple of years. There's going to be a cure, and then it's going to be dealt with. But here you are 17 years later, and you're taking your medication daily. How have you coped with that burden? Because it's not easy. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's BP, diabetes, when you have to consistently on a daily basis and it becomes a routine
Mhm.
to take medication, it is a burden. It takes its toll.
Yeah.
How have you coped with that? What are some of the tips that you have used and you could maybe share with one of our audience members who might also be going through that kind of struggle?
Truth is, I stopped looking at it from the forever perspective to a one day at a time perspective. Because when you look at ARVs, and I look at the fact that I have taken ARVs for 17 years. So if I start saying for another 17 years, I will still be taking ARVs, I will stop because I will feel like I don't have the power, I don't have the will to go all the way for 17 years taking treatment. It's not, it's heavy, it's a lot. So I take it one day at a time. Like, I have taken today's dose, we are done. Let us meet tomorrow. And before you know it, a year's ended and another year's started. That is usually, it's more of a mind trick. Like, you train your mind like it's today. The way you have a headache, then you take a medication for headache that day, and it's done for that day. You see? So tomorrow, if you have another headache, you're going to take another set of painkillers. So it's basically the same exact thing. So
Love
you
that.
yeah, if you start looking at it from a perspective where it is lifelong, you
Mm,
might give up along the way. But if you look at it from a perspective that I am here today, I am taking the medication today, then we meet again tomorrow. And then tomorrow you do the same exact thing and you're like, oh, okay, we meet. It's the same way some people don't like you don't know whether what you're going to eat tomorrow for breakfast, but you wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, I have eggs, I have bread, okay, breakfast is done, like
Yeah.
you don't. The thing with ARVs is you have to really have a very strong willpower to take them
Mhm.
every day, and this I think applies for everybody who has a lifelong condition and has to be on lifetime medication.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You
100%.
must have that will to live. It starts with you. And most times people say, no, I need somebody to talk to me, or I need somebody to encourage me. You might need that somebody to encourage you, but at the end of the day, you are the only person who goes to bed at night. It is you. You are on your own by yourself. You're the only person who understands this journey. So you must be your greatest cheerleader at all times, whether, because ARVs don't know whether you are having a bad day, whether you are not feeling okay. They want to be, the virus is not sleeping. It wants to be
Mhm.
controlled. So you have to.
That's beautiful. And what I love is just your honesty that
Mhm.
it's not easy. I
Yeah.
am doing it. I take it a day at a time because I acknowledge that this is not easy. And I think that will really encourage somebody out there, irrespective of their condition, that it's not easy. You just have to have the willpower to stay the course, have the
Yeah.
willpower to stay the course. Absolutely. So, what do you think needs to be done to change the stigma that we have in society around HIV?
The thing about stigma is it's a mindset. It's how people think. It's the way I can decide and say, I don't like this person. They they probably might not have done anything wrong to you. They probably might not have like done been mean to you or anything. Like you have not even interacted with the person, but you don't like them. And it's the same thing with stigma. It is a mindset. The
Mm.
only stigma you need to be concerned about is self-stigma. Societal stigma, you can always beat that, trust me. But self-stigma, it you might not be able to beat that, because it is you. You are your own patient and your own doctor at the same time. It's you to look at
Wow.
yourself and tell yourself, I am not my diagnosis. I am not limited by HIV. And I like saying HIV is a very tiny virus, but most of the time we give it a lot of power. And if I can deviate a little bit, in church we are told about mountains and how people look at mountains. There's a mountain in everybody's life. So the
Mhm.
mountain in your life is HIV. And the more you look at it and you're like, oh my God, I am going to die. This thing is going to kill me. You are amplifying the mountain. So look at
Mm.
it from the point where it is tiny. It is a tiny virus. You are its host. So as the host, you make the rules. And the moment you at home,
I
have you
love
ever got
you are the host and you make the rules. That's a hashtag.
You are the host, you make the rules, you tell it, hey, I am going to take my ARVs. You're not going to multiply, you're not going to do anything, you're just going to remain dormant there. I'm taking my ARVs, we're good, no opportunistic infections, we'll move on. But the more you start overthinking about it, the more you start worrying about it, the more you start looking at it from a point where and people, a lot of people living with HIV, they worry, will I get married? Will I get children? Will I live normally with this life? And the more you worry, the bigger it becomes. Yet there
Mm.
are people who are very much married. There are people with HIV negative children. It is happening. Just because it has not happened to you yet does not mean that it's not going to happen. So stop looking at it, because I see a lot of people coming to me and telling me, Doreen, I am living with HIV. I don't know how to go on with this life. And I'm like, but your life is still the same. Yesterday, you did not know you have HIV. You are the same person. Today, you know you have HIV. You are the same person. Nothing has changed. So life moves on. And don't get stuck in the worry, in that cocoon of your status, because you might get stuck in there for a very long time, and before you know it, a lot of things in life will have passed you just because you were worried about your HIV status. So when it worry about self-stigma, control it immediately and move on with
Mm.
it. If you're worried that people are actually talking about your HIV status, Tell them, hey, I'm living with HIV. So what? Are you going to change my status? No. Those people who are discussing you probably don't even know the HIV status. So, you see? So I always tell people, stop worrying about people. If you are HIV negative, they will still talk about something. If you're HIV positive, they will still talk. So
Right.
don't worry
So
about them. Yeah.
So what I'm kind of picking from you, and I love self-stigma. I love that. I mean, it's really about how you are taking you. But what I'm also hearing is that we still have a journey, especially in Africa, around stigmatization
Yeah.
with HIV, and it's still that long journey. So it's better for you to look at what you can control rather than be concerned with what you cannot control, because we
Exactly.
still have quite a journey. And that's what I'm kind of hearing from you. I love that hashtag self-stigma. It's really about you. It's that willpower. You are the landlord. You are the landlord. So
Exactly.
call the shots. I really love that. I was reading your post that you posted at the beginning of the week, and I really loved what you said. I'm just going to read a little snippet. You said, if you find yourself, wait, let me start from the beginning. Being diagnosed with HIV is scary.
Mhm.
Even in 2022, when there is treatment and HIV is no longer a death sentence, a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know how to navigate a lifetime of ARVs and stigma. If you find yourself in such a situation, remember your life hasn't come to an end. It has just experienced a test, and how you handle it matters. There is no right or wrong way to live positively with HIV, but taking it one day at a time helps. I really love that. When I read it, I was like, wow, the energy, just the reality and the practicality of it, one day at a time. And now it makes more sense that you've told me about self-stigma.
Yeah.
How do you do? Did you worry about dating? Did you worry about love and relationship? You've just said that a lot of people come to you and they say, oh, but I'm not married. And you're saying just because it hasn't happened to you yet, it doesn't mean that it won't happen. Did you apply that same thought process when you were in that situation? I recall on one of your posts, I think it was towards Valentine's, where you said, I am happily in a relationship. So did what was your process in terms of waiting or in terms of managing the expectations, wanting to be in a relationship?
Um, Relationships are hard. So whether you're positive or negative, they're hard. So you have to
That is
acknowledge
true.
that. You have the thing is, as people living with HIV, we always think it's just about your status, but honestly, it's not about your status. It is. I always tell people living with HIV, find a partner who has sense, so that
Beautiful.
one day when they are mad at you, they won't look at you and like, nobody will like you with the HIV status, because that coming from somebody you love is going to really be not so nice to you. So there's me as a person, I've always really been very open-minded when it comes to dating, because I have faced rejection in dating so many times, to a point where it was like, if it happens, okay, if it does not happen, okay as well. But I have never really looked at my status as a barrier towards my dating life. I have never. And in fact, I've never even put myself in a place where I tell myself that I can only date HIV positive people like me. I have never done that. And probably the reason why I've only dated negative people in my life. But probably that is the reason. But I have never really been that person, because a lot of people come and tell me, Doreen, I'm looking for a positive partner like me. But remember, just because you're both positive does not mean that you're both compatible. The only thing that can be joining you might be just your status, and that is it. And then you realize, oh my God, I don't even like this person at all in any way. And then what do? But you want somebody who is positive like you. So it's not about that. So I always tell people, be very, very open-minded. A lot of us put ourselves in this situation where we want a positive partner because we feel it's going to be easier to disclose. But disclosure is not really a one-day job. It is not something, disclosure and acceptance, actually, those are not things that you wake up and say, oh, today I've accepted myself and I have disclosed to people. No, it's a process. It takes time. It's an everyday job. And actually, that is living with HIV. It's like it's life. Nobody is going to tell you what is going to happen tomorrow. Maybe today you had a bad day. You cannot say tomorrow is also going to be a bad day. Maybe tomorrow is going to be a super awesome day. And you don't know that because you don't know. It's life. It's the same thing as living with HIV. You cannot just put yourself in one corner and say, this is the corner that I choose. You be very, very open-minded. And I always tell people, if you're dating and you end up dating a person who's not living with HIV like you, start the discussion early. Ask them, what do you know about HIV? What do you think about dating people living with HIV? Put them in that kind of perspective, so that when you disclose and tell them, by the way, I am actually living with HIV, they're not going to be the kind of, you know, the information level they have. If you have to add more information to their level so that at least they can understand a little bit, then it's okay. I also always tell people, just have fun. If it's dates, go to dates, leave your HIV status at home, go to dates, eat free food. Okay, the free food part. Eat the free food. And just enjoy yourself. Like, we keep ourselves in a box so many times. We are afraid of meeting people. We are afraid of going out there because we are looking at ourselves from a point where I am living with HIV. No, that should not be your greatest worry, because what if the other person you're worried about is also HIV positive and you don't know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So enjoy yourself, but also as you go through the disclosure process, disclosure is a little bit hard, but ask this person, walk the journey with them. If they don't understand, leave them alone, because you're not joined by the hip by this person. You can always leave them alone and start another new relationship. But understand that the HIV perspective will come through, but also find a person with sense, a person who is very sensible and does not does not look at the virus, but they see the amazing human that you are actually.
Wow, you are so full of pearls of wisdom. Disclosure is a daily thing. Date somebody with sense. Have fun. Don't put yourself in a box. Love that. Just one last question as we wind down.
Mhm.
What would you like to say to somebody who is watching this, and who has a condition that they have to deal with every single day? What are your words of encouragement? You are such a picture of positivity, but I can hear speaking to you that you've also been through challenges, and it's just how you take that. So what would you like to say to someone out there, someone who's watching, someone on the continent who's got a condition that they have to deal with on a daily basis?
So I would like to tell anybody watching with any form of challenge, any form of health condition, that you are not your diagnosis. Remember that. If you have to stand in front of a mirror and tell yourself that every day, do that, because what you speak to yourself is actually very powerful. It makes you live beyond what was supposed to define you and limit you. So you are not your diagnosis, you are not your challenge, you are not your situation at the moment. You are greater than whatever you're dealing with right now. And if you have to take treatment every day like me, for whatever reason, whether you're HIV positive, whether you have any other health condition, let's keep taking treatment. Patients who are on ICU and on life support, they don't choose that today. Now I don't want this, I don't want these tubes, I want out. They don't do that. But you get to live your life normally every day. So don't give up, have that willpower. And don't look at the future. And I'm not saying that you should not think about your future, but stop looking at yourself in 10 years time I will still be taking treatment. No, look at yourself in 10 years time. You will be seated somewhere very beautiful. Maybe you will be in Bali with sipping a cocktail, and just being sunbathing. Like, always have that positive picture every day, because the thing about negative thoughts is they will always try to creep in. They will always try to win, but don't let them win, because you are the host, and whatever you're dealing with is the guest. Guests don't make rules, hosts do. So be an amazing host.
Wow, beautiful. I'm not going to add to that. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the pearls of wisdom. I have just gained so much from having this conversation with you. And I know that our viewers who are going to be watching this will also gain so much. You are such a bright spark, such a bright spark. And I wish you all the best and just love everything that you're doing. Keep shining and just all the best. Thank you so much for watching Africa. Thank you. This has been another edition of Closer Perspective. Would love to hear your comments. So comment section, please tell us what you think. If you're not following Thando channel, you should be. So follow us. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. Have a good evening and good night.